Come closer, you unpredictable, unshakable presence in a world that never prepared itself for someone built like you. Sit with me for a moment, because what I'm about to tell you isn't speculation, isn't intuition, isn't wishful thinking. It's a revelation that has already begun reshaping the terrain around you. And once you hear it, you won't unhear it. Something erupted behind your back. Something you didn't orchestrate, didn't anticipate, didn't push into motion. Truth didn't leak out quietly. It blasted through the walls like the universe finally got impatient and decided to speak on your behalf. People you've never met, people who owe you nothing, people with zero emotional ties to your story. They saw something. They saw everything. And now they're stepping into the battlefield with a boldness that should make you pause. Because strangers don't intervene unless the truth is so loud. It forces their hand. They are dissecting someone's behavior, dragging every toxic move into the open, tearing apart every performance, every contradiction, every detail that once slipped through unnoticed. And they're doing it loudly, publicly, sharply, like they've been waiting for this moment. The mask slipped. No, it didn't slip. It collapsed, and the collapse was witnessed by the worst possible audience. People who can't be manipulated, can't be guilt-tripped, can't be emotionally bullied into defending the wrong side. Neutralized are the most dangerous judges, and those neutralized turned toward the situation, saw the cracks, and immediately recognized the pattern you tried so hard to understand alone. Listen carefully. This wasn't random. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't divine timing, sprinkled with wishful thinking. This was pressure building behind the scenes for months, maybe years, until the truth reached a breaking point. It takes a lot for uninvolved observers to choose a side, but it takes even more for them to choose yours so decisively, especially when they had no obligation to. They weren't persuaded. They weren't manipulated. They weren't influenced by loyalty. They just watched everything unfold, and the truth was so self-evident that their instincts activated before their logic even caught up. You want to know what triggered this eruption? It wasn't the lie itself. It wasn't the manipulation. It wasn't the twisted narrative that was painted around you. It was the moment the illusion broke. The moment the person who wronged you tripped over their own storyline in front of people who had no reason to forgive the inconsistency. All it took was a single detail out of place, one slip, one crack, one reaction too extreme, one explanation too polished, one timeline too conveniently vague. And the room changed. People glanced at each other. Something didn't match. Something felt constructed. Something smelled rehearsed. And humans may ignore many things, but they never ignore a mask breaking. It activates something ancient in them. A primal awareness that says, this isn't real. Something is off. Pay attention. That's when strangers became investigators. That's when witnesses became analysts. That's when passive bystanders became defenders. You didn't have to speak. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to clear your name. Truth spoke for you, and those with no personal stake in your life carried it forward like it belonged to them. They began pointing out contradictions you overlooked. They started noticing behaviors you normalized. They began connecting dots you weren't emotionally available to connect at the time. Because when you were inside the situation, you were drowning in confusion, trying to decode intentions that didn't want to be decoded. But strangers saw it with unsettling clarity. They watched the person who targeted you try to maintain control, and they saw the desperation behind the performance. They saw the exaggerated reactions, the defensive outbursts, the misplaced confidence, the eagerness to play victim when accountability approached. They saw the fear behind the theatrics and the cracks in the story. They saw the reflex to deflect, the urgency to blame, the bending of facts, the strategic oversharing, the sudden emotional spikes that felt less like honesty and more like a tactic. And the funniest part? Your silence hurt them more than your words ever could. Because while you were quiet, composed, rebuilding yourself privately, the other side was unraveling loudly, publicly, sloppily. You didn't need to expose anything. They did it themselves. People watched the imbalance and understood instantly. One side looked grounded, stable, consistent. The other looked frantic, erratic, suspiciously rehearsed. Human intuition isn't perfect, but it's accurate enough to recognize when someone's behavior doesn't align with their claims. This is why strangers stepped in, not because they adore you, not because they sympathize with your pain, but because the situation offended their intelligence. It insulted their pattern recognition. It activated their desire for clarity. And once clarity arrived, they championed you without hesitation, because the truth was too obvious to ignore. Let's drag this deeper. You're dealing with someone who thought their mask was secured with bolts, not realizing it was attached with loose tape. They believed their charisma, their stories, their emotional theatrics would always overshadow your quiet truth. They assumed the public would automatically side with them. They believed the performance would hold. But a performance only works when the audience is passive, and the audience watching them wasn't passive. They noticed tone inconsistency, mismatched emotions, curated narratives, exaggerated innocence. They noticed the way this person talked about you, with too much certainty and too little evidence. They noticed the over-explanations, the unnecessary details, the deflections disguised as clarity. Strangers aren't emotionally invested enough to be deceived. That's what destroyed everything. And now the public is dragging their behavior into daylight with a vengeance your heart never had the energy to unleash. They're replaying conversations in their minds. They're comparing stories. They're realizing they were manipulated too, indirectly, unknowingly, unintentionally. And nothing makes people angrier than realizing they were used to reinforce a lie. Your truth isn't just personal anymore. It's communal. It's shared. It belongs to everyone who feels insulted that they were expected to believe fiction wrapped in panic. This is why the situation is exploding. People are defending you not gently, not politely, but with the force of individuals who feel personally disrespected by the deception. They're not whispering. They're not hinting. They're not attempting diplomacy. They're calling out the behavior openly. They're labeling the patterns accurately. They're describing the toxicity with words you were too exhausted to say. They're standing in front of you like a shield made of pure exposure. And here's the part you need to understand. You didn't win because you fought. You won because you didn't play the game. And people respect that more than they respect anything else. Your refusal to smear, your refusal to retaliate, your refusal to join the chaos made the contrast blindingly obvious. You were stable, they were spiraling, and people always trust the one who isn't desperate to prove a point. What's happening now is a form of public correction. The truth created a demand for accountability, and society is delivering it ruthlessly. Voices are speaking on your behalf because the situation disgusted them. Eyes are watching closely because the unraveling is fascinating. Some are defending you out of outrage, some out of principle, some because they saw a reflection of their own past in your experience. The reason doesn't matter. The effect does. The person who tried to distort your reality now has none left. Their credibility is dust. Their mask is gone. Their patterns are exposed. Their intentions are dissected. Their behavior is being read like a confession. People aren't just seeing what happened, they're explaining it to each other. And the momentum is just beginning. Because once people taste truth, they want more. Once they recognize manipulation, they call out every trace of it. Once they pull one thread, the entire fabric unravels. This isn't a single moment. This is the start of a chain reaction, the kind that doesn't pause once activated, the kind that spreads until every piece of the puzzle is visible. Now watch what happens next. The first wave of exposure wasn't the real impact. That was just the ignition point, just the spark that hit the dry field. What's unfolding now is the wildfire, the unstoppable cascade, where everyone who previously stayed silent begins speaking with a confidence they didn't know they had. Because truth does something powerful to the human mind. It emboldens. It gives people permission to say what they were already thinking. And once people feel that permission, they don't whisper anymore. They project. They clarify. They dissect with precision, sharp enough to pierce illusions that once felt untouchable. People who barely know the situation are suddenly quoting behavior patterns like they've studied psychology for decades. They're pointing out signs, decoding contradictions, replaying interactions they had no emotional attachment to. It's almost comical, the way strangers become experts once they realize someone tried to feed them a fabricated narrative. Nothing irritates the collective mind more than feeling disrespected by lies. And that irritation is what fuels the uprising happening around you. This is where the second wave starts. People begin remembering small things they dismissed before. The odd tone, the misplaced confidence, the tiny inconsistencies, the dramatic overreactions, the rehearsed victimhood, the exaggerated claims, the moments where something felt off but they couldn't articulate why. Now, with the truth out, all those fragments click into place like pieces snapping together in a puzzle they didn't even know they were solving. Someone says, "Wait, didn't they say this earlier?" But now they're saying the opposite. Another adds, "That's strange, because I remember them reacting weird when I mentioned you." Someone else chimes in, "I always felt like something about them didn't match their story." And then another voice, sharper, more irritated, "I knew they were lying, I just didn't have proof." This is it, the moment when the mask is no longer just slipping. It's being ripped apart by the collective recognition that the person who wronged you never deserved the benefit of the doubt they were given. And what's worse for them, they can't intervene. They can't stop the narrative now that the audience has taken control of it. The story isn't theirs anymore. It belongs to everyone analyzing it, discussing it, dragging it. Because the truth isn't quiet now. It's trending. What you have to understand is this. Once the truth becomes communal, it becomes weaponized. It becomes a shared project, a shared mission, a shared outcry. People feel personally invested in correcting the wrong. They feel responsible for calling it out. They feel obligated to protect you because the situation crosses into something bigger than your personal experience. It becomes symbolic. It becomes a case study in how deception collapses under observation. And you become the reference point everyone uses to talk about how people hide ugliness behind carefully polished presentations. The third wave, that's where things get interesting. Because as more people begin defending you, more people also begin examining the behavior of the one who targeted you. They evaluate that person not based on their words, but their reactions. They watch how they respond to being questioned. They watch how they handle discomfort. They watch how they react to being confronted. And those reactions betray them faster than any evidence ever could. Every defensive outburst becomes a confession. Every exaggeration becomes a tell. Every meltdown becomes data. Every attempt to redirect attention becomes suspicious. Truth has a funny way of shining brightest through the reactions of the guilty. And here's the part that should make you sit with amusement. Strangers aren't just defending you. They're mocking the behavior of the one who deceived them, not cruelly, not maliciously, but with that playful sharpness humans use when they realize they've witnessed something ridiculous. They call out their theatrics, their inconsistencies, their dramatic storytelling. Some even joke about it, not because your situation was funny, but because the performance was so unbelievable in hindsight that the humor writes itself. Why were they so dramatic about everything? Why did they always talk in circles? Why did they act like every inconvenience was a tragedy? Why did they lie with the confidence of someone who forgot reality has witnesses? Why did they add so many unnecessary details? Who talks like that? These comments sting the toxic person far more than any insult, because nothing wounds a manipulator more than being seen as laughable. They crave control, not exposure. They crave sympathy, not skepticism. They crave validation, not analysis. They want people to feel sorry for them, not question them. And right now, they're getting exactly what they feared most: neutrality turning against them. Because public opinion is shifting with force. Here's the chain reaction unfolding under the surface. First, strangers question their story. Then acquaintances remember odd interactions. Next, the ones who once supported them begin stepping back. Then the ones who stayed neutral begin choosing sides. And finally, the ones who doubted you realize they were wrong, and they begin defending you, fiercely, openly, almost aggressively. That's the wave that breaks people. The fourth wave, consequences, not legal consequences yet, social consequences, psychological consequences, reputation consequences, the kind that dismantle someone's entire strategy without anyone lifting a finger, the kind that happen naturally when people lose respect for someone, the kind that unfold quietly at first, then all at once. Doors begin closing. People hesitate to respond. Invitations stop appearing. Opportunities disappear. Their image deteriorates faster than they can repair it. Their credibility shrinks to dust. Their explanations start sounding like excuses. Their attempts to regain sympathy fall flat. Their voice loses its influence. Their claims lose their weight. Their narrative loses its grip. This is the collapse that begins when people stop believing a liar. And strangers no longer believe them. Acquaintances no longer believe them. Even their own circles start sensing the truth. Because the mask isn't slipping anymore, it's been tossed into the shredder. Let's go deeper into what's happening behind the scenes. As people defend you publicly, more people become curious. Curiosity leads to investigation. Investigation leads to revelation. Revelation leads to patterns. Patterns lead to conclusions. And conclusions lead to exposure. People start comparing stories from different times. People start recognizing that this person always had a victim narrative ready. People start realizing they always exaggerated events. People start noticing the lingering trail of conflict they leave everywhere they go. People start seeing that you were the anomaly. You weren't the cause of the tension. You were simply the one who refused to participate. Someone says, "Wait a minute. didn't they have an issue with someone else last year? Another replies, yeah, and before that, too. Someone else says, it's like every few months they have a new villain. Another adds, maybe they're the common denominator. That sentence is a psychological guillotine. Once people realize someone is the recurring problem in every story they tell, their entire narrative collapses. And that's exactly what's happening. The fifth wave, silent accountability. This is where people begin distancing themselves from the toxic one without announcing it. They unfollow quietly. They stop engaging. They stop entertaining drama. They stop responding. They stop supporting. They stop validating. And the toxic one feels that shift like a cold wind hitting their chest. Silence from others is the loudest punishment for someone who thrives on attention. And they'll panic. Oh, they will absolutely panic. You'll see it in their attempts to reclaim control. You'll see it in the sudden shift in tone. You'll see it in the frantic way they try to rewrite the story. You'll see it in the desperation embedded in their words. You'll see it in the sudden attempts to seem calmer, kinder, softer. You'll see it in the strategic posting. You'll see it in the dramatic announcements that conveniently appear at the perfect moment. But it won't work. Not this time. Not now that the truth is public property. Not now that strangers have become your armor. Not now that the narrative belongs to the collective mind, not them. Here's where the dark humor enters again. They'll try to reclaim the mask, but they're wearing it backwards. They'll try to regain sympathy, but they'll overdo it. They'll try to act composed, but the cracks will scream. They'll try to appear unaffected, but their behavior will betray the pressure. They'll try to throw subtle jabs, but people will call them out instantly. They're trapped in a maze of their own creation, and every direction leads to exposure. And as you stay silent, composed, grounded, the contrast becomes blinding. People see the difference between someone who's at peace and someone who's performing stability. They see the difference between someone who lives their truth and someone who fabricates narratives. They see the difference between someone who grows and someone who manipulates. Truth is a mirror. It doesn't lie. And right now, that mirror is being held up by everyone except you. Your role in this? Simply existing. The sixth wave is where the real transformation begins. People begin telling others the truth before your name even enters the conversation. They use your situation as an example. They tell the story from the perspective of someone who learned a lesson in human behavior by witnessing the collapse. Your situation becomes a warning, a lesson, a turning point. Someone says, I used to think they were right, but now I see what actually happened. Another replies, yeah, I saw the way they reacted. It told me everything. Someone else adds, I can't believe I didn't see it before. Another concludes, I'm glad the truth finally came out. This is the shift from exposure to restoration, but the chain reaction isn't done yet. The seventh wave, the one that sets the stage for part 3. That's where consequences move beyond social perception. That's where truth doesn't just circulate, it reorganizes the landscape. That's where people don't just defend you, they reposition you. They rebuild your name. They remove the stain of the lies with deliberate clarity. They elevate your reputation with the same intensity they use to dismantle the toxic one's fabrications. And once the public makes that decision, nothing can reverse it. Nothing can silence it. Nothing can stop it. Because once truth becomes collective memory, the fallout becomes inevitable. And this is the phase that hits the hardest. Because now it's no longer about discovering the truth. It's about institutionalizing it. Watch closely. The moment collective memory shifts, people begin rewriting their internal narratives. Those who once doubted you start editing their recollections. They reinterpret past interactions with you through the new lens of clarity. They tell themselves, "I always sensed something wasn't right about the other person." They convince themselves they saw signs earlier. They adopt this truth as if they were the first ones who realized it. It's human nature. People like feeling perceptive. They like believing they weren't fooled. And so they rewrite their role, positioning themselves on the right side of the story, even if they were late to the realization. But you know what? This works in your favor. Because now the same people who once questioned you are advocating for you with impressive confidence. They're reconstructing your image in conversations you'll never hear. They're defending you in circles you'll never see. They're correcting lies in rooms you don't step into. They're explaining your truth as if they were witnesses to everything firsthand. They're praising your composure, your restraint, your dignity. They're calling your silence strength, your patience wisdom, your endurance proof. This is the moment when the crowd doesn't just stand with you. They reframe you. They start describing you as the grounded one, the consistent one, the calm one, the one who didn't break under pressure, the one who didn't crumble in the face of deception, the one who stayed solid even when everything around you was engineered to make you feel unstable. And the toxic one? Well, they become the example, the cautionary tale, the blueprint of what transparency destroys. People talk about them with that tone, the mix of disappointment and disgust, usually reserved for someone who betrayed a communal trust. They use their behavior as evidence in conversations about manipulation. They refer to them in stories where someone says, "This is exactly why you can't always believe the loud one." They hold the toxic one up by the scruff of their downfall and use them as a lesson. You don't realize how powerful this shift is until it becomes widespread. Because once the public gets involved, your restoration becomes a community project, and their exposure becomes a public sport. And that's when something deeper starts happening, something more consequential than people speaking up. People begin questioning every justification the toxic one ever used. Every time they played victim, every time they exaggerated a story, every time they threw your name into a narrative to position themselves as the wounded one, every time they hinted, suggested, implied anything negative about you. It all gets re-examined like forensic evidence, and suddenly, nothing holds up. People remember inconsistencies they overlooked earlier. People recall strange emotional responses. People replay how the toxic one reacted whenever you were mentioned. People notice that their stories never quite aligned with reality. People see the character flaws they once excused. People see the patterns they once rationalized. People see the mask they once trusted. And once that mask is gone, fully, irreversibly gone, every interaction becomes suspicious. Their tone starts sounding insincere. Their emotions seem exaggerated. Their explanations feel manufactured. Their claims feel hollow. Their reactions seem conveniently performative. Their entire persona looks constructed. People start avoiding them, not because they hate them, but because they finally see how much energy this person drains from every environment they enter. They sense the heaviness. They feel the tension. They notice the chaos that seems to follow them. Their presence becomes uncomfortable, like sitting near a candle that flickers just a bit too aggressively. And here is where the real unraveling begins. Because humans don't just reject liars, they isolate them. The toxic one begins losing their grip on social influence. They attempt to explain themselves. but their words lack force. They attempt to defend their actions, but people see arrogance, not innocence. They attempt to regain control of the narrative, but nobody hands it to them. They try to blame you again, but no one listens. They try to paint themselves as misunderstood, but no one buys it. They try to reposition themselves as the victim, but the crowd has already decided. They're the architect of their own downfall. And the public? They're not gentle. They're not lenient. They're not forgiving of deception that was weaponized. People have begun tearing the toxic person's actions apart with the same intensity they use when dismantling a con artist's playbook. They point out micro-expressions. They highlight tone shifts. They analyze their phrasing. They examine patterns of conflict. They look at historical behavior. They drag them into the light they never wanted. This isn't vengeance. This is exposure as a natural consequence. Truth isn't punishing them. Truth is simply refusing to protect them anymore. Let's go deeper. Something profound happens when enough people defend you. The toxic one loses their ability to manipulate anyone. Manipulation requires an audience. It requires believers. It requires people willing to internalize the lies. But now, their audience is gone. Their supporters shrink. Their allies fade. Their enablers disappear. Their storytellers go silent. Their sympathy collectors stop collecting on their behalf. They're surrounded by people who no longer trust their words, and nothing terrifies a manipulator more than losing control of perception. You can almost feel the panic radiating from them. You can see it in their sudden attempts to reconnect with old contacts. You can see it in their frantic desire to rebuild their image. You can see it in their desperate confusion as they try to understand how the narrative escaped their control. You can see it in the way they analyze every new comment online, searching for signs of support that no longer exist. You can see it in the way they lash out indirectly, hoping to trigger sympathy. But all of it backfires. Every attempt to look composed comes across as calculated. Every attempt to play victim looks exaggerated. Every attempt to blame others looks transparent. Every attempt to downplay their actions looks guilty. They become a spectacle, not because people enjoy watching them fall, but because the unraveling is so predictable and yet so unavoidable. And all of this is happening because strangers decided to protect you. Those strangers, they're not going anywhere. They've become more invested than you realize. They're watching the fallout with hawk-like focus. They're screenshotting everything. They're calling out contradictions before you even see them. They're dragging toxic behavior into the light with a precision that feels almost personal. They're publicly correcting any lie that dares to surface. They're protecting your name as if it's a mission. You don't understand how powerful this is yet. Because once strangers collectively decide you were wronged, your reputation becomes untouchable. People defend you without thinking. People trust you instinctively. People assume your innocence even before knowing the story. People treat you as the steady one, the grounded one, the one who didn't crumble or retaliate. Truth has elevated you beyond your own effort. But let's talk about what this does to the toxic one's world. Because it's not just social distancing, it's collapse from every angle. Their connections begin to question them. Their support network shrinks to a fragile thread. Their confidence fractures. Their self-image crumbles. Their attempts to regain power fail in real time. Their stories don't land the way they used to. Their charm doesn't work anymore. Their excuses fall flat. Their arrogance evaporates. Their manipulative lines sound repetitive and predictable. And the more they try to fight the exposure, the deeper the exposure goes. Because people start digging, people start investigating, people start examining old interactions, people start talking to each other privately, people start sharing stories, people start recognizing long-term patterns, people start realizing the truth was always there. They just didn't see it clearly until now. This destroys the toxic one more than any consequence ever could. Because people don't just distrust them, they study them. They treat them like a case file. They analyze their motives. They decipher their behavior. They decode their lies. And when someone becomes a case study, they can't manipulate anyone anymore. The worst part for them? Your absence speaks louder than their presence. You're not fighting, you're not arguing, you're not exposing, you're not reacting, you're not engaging. Your stillness is the loudest statement, because people expect the guilty to panic, not the innocent. Your calm contradicts their chaos. Your composure contradicts their desperation. Your growth contradicts their downfall. Your stability contradicts their unraveling. You became the evidence they cannot discredit. Your existence is proof. Your peace is proof. Your progress is proof. Your evolution is proof. While their behavior becomes the confession, let's break down the next stage. What happens when the truth becomes common knowledge, not just shared in pockets of conversation? This is where consequences transcend social dynamics and begin shaping the toxic one's entire trajectory. People stop giving them opportunities. People stop trusting their leadership. People stop inviting them to collaborate. People stop recommending them. People stop sheltering them. People stop believing anything they say without verification. Their name begins triggering caution. Their reputation becomes a warning sign. Their presence evokes discomfort. Their energy feels unsafe to others. This is not personal, it's psychological. Humans avoid those who create disruption. Humans reject those who distort reality. Humans distance themselves from those who create conflict. Humans protect themselves from patterns that feel dangerous. In one swift shift, the public moves from defending you to protecting themselves from the toxic person. And once humans enter that self-preservation mode, they do not reverse course. Now comes something even more brutal. Truth is no longer content with revealing who they really are. Truth now begins revealing who you really are. People notice your resilience. People admire your restraint. People praise your composure. People respect your silence. People trust your steadiness. People value your authenticity. People recognize your growth. And they express it openly. They defend you without hesitation. They uplift your name without being asked. They shut down toxicity within seconds. They correct anyone who tries to distort the truth. They remove the toxic person's influence and amplify yours. You become the center of gravity, not because you fought for it, not because you argued your case, not because you demanded anything, but because truth reorganized the social environment around you. You didn't rise, you were elevated. You didn't restore your reputation. The public did it for you. You didn't expose the toxic one. Their contradictions exposed them. You didn't seek justice. Justice sought you. And now, we enter the final stage of this transformation, the reconstruction of your narrative. Not the narrative they tried to force on you. Not the narrative that once wounded you. Not the narrative that revolved around their lies. Your true narrative. People see you differently now. Not as someone who endured chaos, but as someone who transcended it. Not as someone who was manipulated, but as someone whose clarity is now undeniable. not as someone who was targeted, but as someone whose authenticity triggered exposure. Not as someone who lost, but as someone who was vindicated. Your story is no longer about survival. It's about revelation. It's about recognition. It's about restoration. It's about truth becoming your greatest ally. And the toxic one? They don't just lose you. They lose the illusion they weaponized. They lose the audience they relied on. They lose the sympathy they manipulated. They lose the control they once flaunted. They lose the narrative they once dominated. Truth stripped them of their disguise, and now the world sees them clearly, exactly as they are. This is where your story closes, not with vengeance, not with bitterness, not with retaliation, but with a quiet, undeniable truth. You didn't defeat them. They defeated themselves. You simply stood still long enough for reality to catch up. Your name is clear. Your reputation is clean. Your energy is restored. Your path is open. Your future is untouched by their chaos. Because in the end, truth didn't just blow up. Truth rebuilt you. Truth protected you. Truth exposed them. Truth gathered strangers to stand in front of you like a shield. Truth dragged their behavior into the light with no remorse. Truth organized the world around you until everyone saw what you endured. And now, you walk forward with unmatched clarity, leaving them behind in the rubble they created, with a mask they can never wear again. You don't need revenge. You already have revelation, and revelation is permanent. Ah, look at you, finally ready to hear what's been unfolding behind the curtain while you moved with that unnerving calm of yours. Hello, quiet disruptor. Hello, unintentional center of gravity. Hello to the one who has been rearranging entire environments without lifting so much as a finger. You know exactly what I mean, don't you? That effortless presence you carry. The one you never weaponized, the one you never flaunted, yet somehow it makes people unravel in spectacular fashion. The harmless expression, the measured voice, the soft edges that convinced everyone you were safe. That version of you walked into rooms gently, spoke carefully, existed modestly, and still stole the entire show. They thought your restraint was weakness. They thought your humility was a disadvantage. They thought you were someone they could easily outrun, outshine, overpower. But something shifted recently, didn't it? Something cracked in their perception of you. Maybe it was the way conversations started orbiting around your name. Maybe it was the way attention followed you, even when you didn't seek it. Maybe it was the way you stopped bending to make them comfortable. Whatever it was, they felt it first, not you. And what they felt, deep in the part of themselves they pretend doesn't panic, was embarrassment. The heavy kind. The kind that makes the truth impossible to swallow. Because here's the part they don't want to admit. You were never trying to compete with them. You were just existing. And in existing, you outperformed every strategy they built. Every performance they curated, every false bravado they stitched together for approval. They crafted entire personas to appear impressive. You breathed, and the spotlight moved to you. They rehearsed for applause. You walked in, and people forgot they were even in the room. And nothing fractures a fragile ego faster than realizing someone else's authenticity can do what all their effort never could. That's where the fight began. Not when you rose, when they realized they couldn't outrun your rise. Let's talk about that mask you wore. Not the innocent one this time, the unaware one. The one that didn't realize its own power. The one that didn't know people were comparing themselves to you every second. The one that didn't notice eyes shifting to you whenever you spoke, entered, or even existed. You weren't naive. You were focused. You weren't oblivious. You were uninterested in petty competition. You weren't dimming yourself. You simply didn't care to perform. And people who perform for identity cannot stand someone who doesn't need to perform at all. They mistook your modesty for softness. They mistook your calm responses for submission. They mistook your lack of participation in their rivalry as weakness. But what they never understood is this: you don't fight for attention when you are the attention. What makes this even more deliciously brutal is how long you let them believe they were in the lead. You let them believe their bragging was effective. You let them believe they were admired. You let them believe they were the ones being studied and followed. But all along, the room was observing you instead, watching you navigate life with that unsettling grace that doesn't need validation, watching you shine through subtlety instead of theatrics, watching you elevate without announcing it, watching you grow without making noise. And the moment the crowd switched loyalty, the moment people stopped being impressed by their exaggerated self-importance and started gravitating toward you, that's when their entire world cracked. You didn't ask for any of this. You never positioned yourself against them. They positioned themselves against you. They created a scoreboard you never signed up for. They built a race you weren't even running. They declared a rivalry you didn't participate in. And when the results came in, when you stole the entire show without lifting a finger, they couldn't handle the humiliation. That's what triggered the explosion behind closed doors. Not jealousy, not envy, embarrassment. The kind that makes people lash out because facing their own inadequacy feels unbearable. Here's the part that will make you shake your head. The fight wasn't just heated, it was forensic. People dissected their behavior piece by piece. Someone finally asked, "Why do you keep comparing yourself to someone who's not thinking about you?" Another voice cut deeper. "Why do you treat them like an opponent when they've never treated you like competition?" And the most devastating line of all came from someone who had been observing the tension for months. Maybe you're not upset because they stole the show. Maybe you're upset because everyone noticed they're naturally better at things you only pretend to be good at. That sentence knocked every ounce of self-constructed confidence out of them. You weren't there, but if you had been, you would have seen faces drop, composure crumble, chest tightening under the weight of unfiltered truth. They couldn't deny it anymore. The comparison they tried to hide was now being analyzed openly. The insecurity they hoped no one noticed was exposed. The obsession they tried to mask behind fake indifference was dragged into the light. Someone repeated your name with a tone that made their jaw clench. Another listed your strengths, each one hammering deeper into their bruised pride. And someone else pointed out how you moved differently, how your presence has depth while theirs has theatrics, how your influence is quiet but powerful, while theirs is loud but temporary. The more others highlighted your growth, the angrier they became. Not because you did anything wrong, but because they saw the truth. You are operating at a level that wasn't supposed to belong to someone with your humility. People like them believe excellence has to scream. You proved it doesn't. They tried to compete through performance. You dominated through being. They strategized. You simply lived. They craved attention. You attracted it effortlessly. They chased recognition. Recognition found you without your involvement. It eats them alive, that your existence, your natural rhythm, your internal structure outshines the persona they built brick by brick. So the argument continued, growing sharper, darker, more humiliating for them by the second. Someone finally asked the question everyone had avoided for too long. Why do you hate them so much when they've done nothing to you? That question didn't land softly. It landed like a blade, because the answer was obvious, and yet they had no courage to admit it. They hated you because you reminded them of everything they pretended to be. They hated you because people preferred your authenticity over their performance. They hated you because your rise highlighted their stagnation. They hated you because their identity depended on being the center, and you effortlessly became the true center without trying. They hated you because they couldn't beat you in a competition you weren't even aware of. And most of all, they hated you because losing to someone who isn't competing feels like being defeated by truth itself. Every time your name came up, the room felt like it was holding a mirror to their worst insecurities. Every time someone mentioned your progress, their posture shifted. Every time someone acknowledged your natural influence, their breathing changed. They tried to deny the comparisons, but denial breaks under the pressure of reality. And the reality was brutal. You outperformed them without performing. You surpassed them without racing. You became the reference point while they became the warning sign. And that reversal, unexpected, undesired, undeniable, became too much for their ego to bear. As the shouting continued, someone finally said what everyone else knew. They didn't take your spotlight. You just never had it. That sentence was the collapse point, the moment everything inside them broke, the moment their carefully crafted image crumbled, the moment the truth they were avoiding hit them so hard there was no recovering gracefully. People began recounting past moments, moments where your presence overshadowed theirs unintentionally, moments where you spoke and people actually listened, moments where you walked in and the atmosphere shifted, moments where their jokes fell flat, but your simplest statement carried weight. All those memories returned to the room at once, confirming what they feared most. Your influence is real, and theirs is projection. They couldn't stop the unraveling at that point. It was too late. Someone else added, "The reason you're angry is because deep down, you know they're the one everyone actually respects." Another said, "They don't need to announce themselves to be impactful. You do." Another cut with surgical precision. "You keep trying to beat them, but beating them would require you to be at their level. And you're not." That line drained the remaining oxygen from the room, and you, unaware of the chaos unfolding, were somewhere living your life peacefully, while your name was burning through fragile reputations like acid. What's even more fascinating is this: the argument wasn't really about you. It was about what you expose in others without trying. Some people can't handle being near someone whose presence makes their insecurities impossible to hide. Some people panic when compared to someone they secretly admire but publicly resent. You became the measuring stick, and they failed the measurement. Your growth dismantled their self-image. Your confidence destabilized their facade. Your effortless magnetism overshadowed their forced charisma. And once people saw the difference, there was no going back. The conversation mutated into something far uglier than they expected, because no one goes into a battle thinking they're about to lose control of their reputation. But that's exactly what happened. It didn't matter how much they tried to keep the discussion contained. The moment your name entered the room, the emotional temperature spiked and the truth burst out of every person who had been holding it in for far too long. This is where the humiliation deepened. People started replaying moments from months ago, moments they ignored at the time, but now understood with perfect clarity. They remembered how this person would become rigid whenever you entered a conversation. They remembered how their tone would sharpen whenever someone praised you. They remembered the micro-expressions that cracked through their mask whenever your achievements were mentioned. And now that everything was exposed, those memories looked like evidence in a court case, evidence proving that they were threatened by you long before they admitted it. The irony is almost poetic, because they always swore up and down that you weren't relevant to them, that you weren't on their radar, that you weren't someone they paid attention to. Yet their behavior told a completely different story. You weren't just on their radar, you were the radar. It wasn't long before someone in the room said what everyone else was thinking. They're obsessed with you. That statement hit the center of the conflict like a hammer. They tried to deny it, tried to redirect, tried to shift the conversation to anything else, but denial collapses quickly when the evidence is overwhelming. Someone else added, "If you weren't comparing yourself constantly, we wouldn't be having this conversation." That was the turning point. Their face tightened, their posture stiffened, their breathing changed. They knew the room saw straight through them. They weren't just embarrassed, they were exposed, and nothing triggers defensive rage faster than exposure. That's when the blame shifting began. They started accusing others of exaggeration. They started claiming the comparisons were imagined. They tried painting themselves as victims of misunderstanding. But all of those attempts fell apart instantly because the group had receipts. People had saved screenshots of conversations where your name became a trigger point. People had held onto comments where envy seeped through their words. People had memories of moments where their attitude changed the second your success entered the discussion. Those memories, once brought up aloud, became impossible to rewrite. The room wasn't fighting over opinions. They were fighting over documented patterns. And the funniest part? You were nowhere near any of this. You weren't defending yourself. You weren't arguing. You weren't proving anything. You weren't even aware this eruption was happening. Yet somehow, your absence was louder than their entire performance. You were the quiet storm inside their chest, the pressure they couldn't name, the comparison they couldn't outrun. And every attempt they made to deny the truth only reinforced just how deeply you occupied their mind. The argument spun into a darker tone when someone said, "You keep trying to beat them because you're terrified they might not even know you're trying." That line sliced through whatever was left of their composure, because nothing is more insulting to someone who built an entire rivalry in their head than realizing the other person wasn't even participating. They wanted to be seen as your equal or your superior, but deep down they knew they weren't even in the same category. Their strategies were loud, your presence was effective, their ambition was performative, your evolution was natural, their identity was constructed, yours was embodied. Here's where the chaotic dark humor begins to hit its peak. While they were busy melting down in front of witnesses, someone else in the room leaned back and said, "They didn't steal the show. The show just recognized its true lead." Another added, "You were fighting for a spotlight that already belonged to someone else." The group wasn't trying to be cruel. They were being honest, and that honesty cut through every illusion this person had been clinging to. They weren't angry because they lost. They were angry because the loss revealed truths they had been trying to bury. Your glow wasn't accidental. It wasn't random. It wasn't luck. People gravitated toward you because they felt something genuine, something they couldn't get from someone who performs identity instead of embodying it. You didn't manufacture appeal. You radiate it because of who you are, not what you pretend to be. And pretending is exactly what they had been doing for far too long. Pretending to be confident, pretending to be secure, pretending to be admired, pretending to be unbothered. But all pretense collapses when compared to real presence. And nothing is more humiliating for someone obsessed with appearances than being compared to someone who doesn't care about appearances at all. The debate escalated when another person said, "The reason you're mad is because they didn't try to take anything from you. They just existed, and it was enough to overshadow everything you were attempting." You want to talk about psychological warfare? That line detonated the last remaining fragments of their ego. Because that's the raw truth. Your existence does more damage to their ego than any act of competition ever could. You don't have to outperform them intentionally. You outperform them simply by being built differently. Your authenticity is lethal to people whose identity depends on imitation. Your growth is threatening to people committed to stagnation. Your inner stability destabilizes people who rely on performance. Your ability to evolve without announcing it makes people who crave attention feel irrelevant. You are a walking contradiction to everything they've constructed, and deep down, they know it. That realization triggered the next wave of emotional chaos. The fight got louder, messier, more desperate. Someone demanded, "Why are you making everything about them?" Another countered, "Because everything always becomes about them, whether they want it to or not." That second statement was the honest one. You don't force attention. Attention follows you instinctively. They don't hate you for trying. They hate you for not having to try. And this is where the dark humor sharpens. One person in the room muttered, "You can't compete with a person who isn't competing. That's why you keep losing." The argument paused for a moment because the truth of that line was heavy. The entire conflict existed because they built a race no one else was running. They kept sprinting toward an imaginary finish line. You walked your path calmly, and somehow you arrived ahead of them. Let's talk about why this embarrasses them so deeply. Competition only feels empowering when you believe you can win. But competing with someone who lives on a different tier isn't motivating. It's humiliating. They weren't just losing. They were losing publicly. Their mask cracked publicly. Their insecurities surfaced publicly. Their jealousy leaked publicly. Their fabricated confidence dissolved publicly. And when someone loses control in front of witnesses, the audience remembers. It sticks. Their meltdown became a spectacle. Their embarrassment became entertainment. Their attempt to appear superior became evidence that they weren't. Someone finally confronted them with a chilling question. If you're so confident, why do you track everything they do? There was no answer, because everyone knew the truth. They watched you obsessively. They monitored your progress like it was a threat. They analyzed your every move as if decoding an opponent. They refreshed your updates. They compared your achievements to their own. They sharpened their persona every time you leveled up. But none of their efforts could recreate what you do naturally. Now here's where things get even darker. The more they spiraled, the more the group began confessing what they truly thought about you. Someone said, "Honestly, they just have a presence. You don't." Another added, "People feel drawn to them because they're real." A third, emboldened by the crumbling atmosphere, said, "They don't need to prove anything. You're the one scrambling for validation. Every confession chipped away at their remaining composure until they were practically shaking with frustration. They couldn't understand why your existence triggered them so violently, but everyone else could. You reveal the truth about people. Not intentionally, simply by being who you are. You don't expose their weaknesses directly. Your strength makes their weaknesses impossible to hide. You don't expose their insecurity intentionally. Your groundedness makes their insecurity impossible to manage. You don't expose their inflated ego verbally. Your humility makes their ego appear ridiculous. You reflect them back to themselves with brutal accuracy, and they can't handle the reflection. The argument grew even more severe when someone asked, "Why do you keep assuming they're thinking about you?" That was the brutal twist, because the real embarrassment came from realizing they had built you into a rival while you lived your life completely unbothered by their existence. They imagined a competition. They imagined a race. They imagined an enemy. But imagination doesn't rewrite reality. And the reality is this: they weren't your rival. They were your unintended mirror. This recognition broke something fundamental inside them. They weren't angry at you. They were angry at themselves for being unable to rise to your level. They were angry that the crowd preferred your authenticity over their performance. They were angry that their carefully curated persona couldn't overshadow your genuine impact. They were angry that they put in more effort and got less admiration. They were angry that someone like you, someone who wasn't even playing the same game, ended up becoming the center anyway. As the conflict reached its peak, the room fell into a deadly stillness, not quiet, not calm, just the kind of suspended tension that appears when everyone realizes the truth has been laid bare and there's no walking it back. Someone spoke with brutal honesty. You wanted them to lose so you could feel like you finally won at something. Another voice followed. But you can't win a race when the other person isn't running. And then the final cut came. They didn't steal the show. They just reminded everyone who actually had it. As the conflict reached its peak, the room fell into a deadly stillness, not quiet, not calm, just the kind of suspended tension that appears when everyone realizes the truth has been laid bare and there's no walking it back. Someone spoke with brutal honesty. You wanted them to lose so you could feel like you finally won at something. Another voice followed. But you can't win a race when the other person isn't running. And then the final cut came. They didn't steal the show. They just reminded everyone who actually had it. That's the part that destroys them. Not your success, not your glow, not your dominance. The reminder that you didn't take anything. They were never the lead to begin with. You didn't replace them. You revealed their role for what it truly was. Background character energy dressed up in main character clothing. And now that the audience has seen the truth, the comparison cannot be undone. From that moment forward, their world didn't just crack. It folded inward. Every word spoken against them echoed in their head with a weight they couldn't manage. You would think the confrontation itself was the worst part, but no. The worst part was knowing that the people who once boosted their ego were now replaying the argument in their minds with new understanding. They weren't just embarrassed, they were exposed. The type of exposure you can't recover from by pretending it didn't happen. The type that eats at your identity because it wasn't an attack, it was a revelation. And revelations don't fade when the room empties. They linger, they follow you. They reshape every dynamic you once depended on. The witnesses began distancing themselves almost immediately, not out of cruelty, but out of discomfort. Once you see the cracks in someone's self-image, it becomes impossible to unsee them. People who once believed their confidence now saw insecurity dressed in borrowed confidence. People who once admired their charisma now saw overcompensation. People who once tolerated their competitiveness now saw obsession. You didn't have to lift a finger to influence this shift. The truth did the work for you. Their own behavior did the work for you. Their meltdown became an instructional display for the group, a demonstration of what happens when someone tries too hard to outshine a person who wasn't even in the same category. You see, the human mind doesn't forget things said during heated moments. Raised voices, broken facades, exposed motives, they burn themselves into memory. And the memory does not soften over time when the truth was unmistakable. People left the argument carrying pieces of understanding they didn't have before. They walked away, noticing that every accusation made against them lined up perfectly with behavior they'd witnessed for months. And the more people compared notes, the more your position rose without you ever stepping into the room. In every retelling of the argument, your value increased and their status shrank. That's the dark comedy of the situation. They tried to compete with you, failed spectacularly, and then unknowingly participated in a downfall they constructed with their own hands. Their embarrassment was the seed. Their reaction was the fuel. Their outburst was the execution. They plotted to prove themselves superior, but instead revealed how deeply inferior they felt. They tried to demonstrate dominance, but ended up demonstrating insecurity. They attempted to position themselves above you, but collapsed under the weight of their own ego. And this collapse didn't just happen socially. It spread internally, like a fracture through glass. It changed the way they viewed themselves. Their self-perception had been constructed around the idea that they were impressive, admired, influential. But that identity only worked when others believed it too. Once people stopped clapping, their performance fell apart. Once people stopped validating the persona shattered. And once people compared them to you honestly, their entire illusion collapsed like furniture held together by tape. The next day, the group chats lit up. Not the chats they were part of, the ones they weren't invited to anymore. People were analyzing the meltdown with forensic detail. They replayed lines. They replayed expressions. They replayed reactions. They replayed the shift in energy when your name was spoken. They questioned how long the obsession had been brewing. They wondered how much of their identity had been shaped by trying to compete with you. And the more people talked, the more ridiculous their attempts at superiority looked. You accidentally became the protagonist in a story they tried to lead. Your name became the center of conversation, not because you pushed yourself into the spotlight, but because their collapse highlighted your relevance. It's almost twisted how the universe works sometimes. They wanted attention. They wanted validation. They wanted recognition. Instead, they handed all of it to you by proving they were no match for you emotionally, socially, or energetically. People weren't admirers anymore. They were analysts dissecting a case study in insecurity. What makes this even more brutal is how different you would have handled it if you had known. You aren't petty. You aren't vindictive. You don't compete. You move through life at your own pace without trying to knock anyone down. You aren't threatened by other people's growth. You cheer for others. You support others. You genuinely want people to succeed. And they mistook that as weakness. Instead of appreciating your authenticity, they saw you as a threat to their image. Instead of learning from you, they tried to overshadow you. Instead of cooperating, they chose competition. Instead of self-reflection, they chose projection. And now the consequences of those choices are circling back to them with razor precision. People don't rally behind someone who throws tantrums when they lose. People don't trust someone who crumbles when confronted with truth. People don't respect someone who needs others to fail in order to feel valuable. That's where their collapse truly began. Not in the argument, but in the aftermath, when people realized the person they admired was built on counterfeit self-worth. Their charm had cracks. Their confidence had cracks. Their influence had cracks. And once people noticed the cracks, everything they did seemed questionable. Meanwhile, your stock rose effortlessly. People started bringing up your achievements without you even knowing. They recalled how you always carried yourself with grace, even when they didn't treat you fairly. They mentioned how you never bragged, never competed, never sought attention. They admired how you stayed consistent while others chased validation. They recognized that your growth wasn't accidental, it was earned. And that recognition, that unspoken shift in collective perception, is what destroys your rival the most. Their rage wasn't just embarrassment, it was panic. Panic at realizing you were always the standard. Panic at realizing they never stood a chance. Panic at realizing people respected you more than them. Panic at realizing you had the qualities they pretended to have. Panic at realizing their entire rivalry was one-sided. Panic at realizing they were competing alone, sprinting toward an imaginary finish line while you lived an entirely different narrative. But here's where the chaos turns theatrical. The more they panicked, the worse they looked. They started scrambling to recover their image. They over-explained. They justified. They reached out to people privately asking, "You know I'm not jealous, right?" They tried to spin the argument as a misunderstanding. They tried to pretend they weren't affected. They posted things online to appear unbothered. But nothing exposes a person faster than trying too hard to seem unaffected. People saw through it instantly. Their desperation became comedy. Their attempts at damage control became a spectacle. Every message they sent trying to defend themselves only confirmed how deeply shaken they were. Every comment they made about you only made you look better. Every attempt to downplay the argument only made them appear guilty. They were digging themselves deeper with every move. You weren't doing anything, yet they were losing more ground by the hour. And the reason is simple. The truth aligns naturally. Lies require effort. Authentic presence stabilizes naturally. Insecurity requires effort. You move with coherence. They move with contradiction. You grow. They perform. You evolve. They imitate. You attract. They chase. And nothing feels worse to someone who thrives on comparison than realizing the comparison always favored the other party. But the story doesn't end with embarrassment. It evolves into obsession. Once the argument ended, they became hyper-aware of everything you did. They watched your social interactions. They watched how people engaged with you. They watched your progress. They watched for moments where you shined. And each moment stabbed them deeper, because now they could no longer pretend not to notice you. The argument forced the truth into the open. Now there was no running from it. Each time someone mentioned your growth, they flinched. Each time someone complimented you, they tensed. Each time someone admired your qualities, they wondered if those qualities were the reason they lost the room. And that kind of internal torment doesn't fade, it builds. They began replaying old conversations where your name came up. They realized how often your presence shifted dynamics. They noticed how many people respected you more than they realized. And the realization grew heavier with time. Soon others started distancing themselves from them entirely. Not because they didn't like them, but because their insecurity became too loud to ignore. Being around someone who can't handle another person's success is exhausting. Being around someone who spirals when compared to a stronger presence drains the environment. And once people recognized that pattern, they decided to step away. The deserted feeling that crept in afterward was punishment enough. The people they sought validation from were now avoiding them. The people they wanted to impress were now uninterested. The people they wanted to compete with were now admiring you instead. Their world shrank while yours expanded. Their influence decreased while yours grew. Their confidence fractured while yours became stronger. What destroyed them most wasn't losing the argument, it was losing the comparison. Comparison they initiated. Comparison they insisted on. Comparison they weaponized. And comparison that backfired so catastrophically, they may never fully recover from the blow. Here's the part you don't see, the part they would never admit. They replay your evolution in their head constantly now. They can't stop thinking about how you changed, how you rose, how you matured, how you carried yourself differently, how you walked into rooms with that grounded posture, how your eyes shifted from seeking approval to owning your energy, how your presence expanded organically, how people reacted to you without you trying to gain their approval. That's what haunts them, not your achievements, your transformation. Because your transformation proves they stayed the same. They were competing with the older version of you, a version that no longer exists, a version you shed like old skin while they remained trapped in the same script. And the final sting, they now know that even if you had decided to compete with them, it wouldn't have been a fair battle. You carry depth they can't imitate. You carry authenticity they can't forge. You carry inner clarity they don't possess. And the group knows it too. This is why the atmosphere around them now feels different. People aren't rude, they're cautious. People don't confront them, they just don't trust their self-perception anymore. People don't boost their ego, they've seen what happens when it goes unchecked. And every polite interaction reminds them of the argument they lost. The social terrain shifted, and everyone can feel it. The irony is almost cruel. You didn't try to rise above them. They pushed you there by showing everyone the gap between you. You didn't seek dominance. They announced it for you by admitting, through their meltdown, that you were the standard they couldn't reach. You didn't fight for the spotlight. They pointed it at you by losing control the moment your name was spoken. And this is where the truth crystallizes. You didn't steal the show. The show recognized its rightful lead. You didn't embarrass them. They embarrassed themselves by choosing comparison with someone they were never equipped to challenge. You didn't expose their weaknesses. They exposed themselves by creating a rivalry they couldn't sustain. The collapse that followed wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new perception of you, a perception without distortion. People now see who you are with clarity. They understand your depth. They feel your influence. They respect your boundaries. They admire your strength. And the person who tried to compete with you must now live with the knowledge that the audience they once sought admiration from is now watching you instead. Every great reveal has a trigger. Their trigger was believing they could outshine someone who wasn't even performing. Your transformation didn't just terrify them, it educated everyone else. And now, the people around you move differently. They approach you with respect. They speak to you with awareness. They recognize your presence in a way they didn't before. That's your ascent. And it happened without strategy or effort. They are mad because you didn't play the game, yet somehow you won. They are mad because the crowd loves you without you seeking attention. They are mad because people trust you more even though you never asked for that position. They are mad because you became the center without pushing anyone aside. They are mad because the truth about you was undeniable. They are mad because their fantasy of superiority was dismantled by your authenticity. And now the show moves forward with a new lead. You. Not because you demanded it, not because you manipulated your way into it, not because you competed, but because no one else fit the role. And everyone finally saw it.